Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga back up, bitch? Why you always trying to press a nigga? If it ain't one thing, it's the next, it starts to stress a nigga. This overthinking that you doing, it affects a nigga. Patience running thin with you for real, bitch, don't you test a nigga. Ain't never been the type to show no one affection, nigga. She don't trust me, say I'm the reason she don't mess with niggas. Calls me toxic cause I ain't with none of the extras, nigga. Pushing me away, bro, once I'm gone, you ain't gon' catch a nigga. I'm feeling boxed in, I need me some space. There ain't no turning back like KK, I'm doing the race. Forget the bitch, I bag the only thing I ever would chase. Thought you was coming with sight, your number getting erased. On to the next, you should've known how wide the look on your face. Get the fuck from off my phone, it's best that you know your place. These years I'll never get them back, with you they go in the waste. Got what I want and now I'm skating and you getting replaced. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga back up, bitch? Why you always trying to press a nigga? If it ain't one thing, it's the next, it starts to stress a nigga. This overthinking that you doing, it affects a nigga. Patience running thin with you for real, bitch, don't you test a nigga. Ain't never been the type to show no one affection, nigga. She don't trust me, say I'm the reason she don't mess with niggas. Calls me toxic cause I ain't with none of the extras, nigga. Pushing me away, bro, once I'm gone, you ain't gon' catch a nigga. I'm feeling boxed in, I need me some space. There ain't no turning back like KK, I'm doing the race. Forget the bitch, I bag the only thing I ever would chase. Thought you was coming with sight, your number getting erased. On to the next, you should've known how wide the look on your face. Get the fuck from off my phone, it's best that you know your place. These years I'll never get them back, with you they go in the waste. Got what I want and now I'm skating and you getting replaced. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, this who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Yeah, it's back. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time. I value mine, you should value yours, so let's get started. So, this is, obviously, it's Tuesday, which is the Team Tuesday, and so those shows are usually a little more personal because I'm talking about my favorite teams, and if you don't like the portion of that, I understand. It's cool to skip. But because of that, the theme for today, Revisionist History. right? And so this is going to be revisionist history, and it's slightly personal because, again, we're going to be talking about some of the teams. Now, revisionist history, it's real simple. It is reinterpreting things that, in the sense of history, stuff that we all know. You saw it, I saw it, we were all there, especially events that you lived through, right? It's one thing for revisionist history to be misused by older people who are telling younger individuals who never lived through it, and they are basically, I don't want to say framing it, but basically, they are framing and trying to get a message across, and they are telling you this is what it was, even though that's incorrect. But then you have even worse revisionist history, which is the kind of revisionist history that you lived through, right? Like, you lived through a moment in time, and then someone tries to come up to you and say, nah, that's not how it went. This is how it went. They're trying to reinterpret it to get you to understand something. And it's like, but wait, I was there for it. I lived through it. I experienced it. How are you going to tell me what I lived through? So, because of that, I was thinking about this and a couple of things I've been hearing the last 24 to 48 hours. It got me thinking. John Elway was doing a show or podcast, and he talked about the biggest regret of his career. And Bronco fans, you've heard this a million times probably. I know I have, and I'm just sick of it. Biggest regret of Elway's career, not drafting Josh Allen. Right? That's the biggest regret of his career. Not drafting Josh Allen. And I have to wonder, in this huge regret of Elway's, does John Elway have a crystal ball? Now, John Elway is a lot of things. John Elway is the best quarterback in franchise history. John Elway is one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks ever. John Elway is a legend. He won a championship as a general manager. He is a lot of things. But I also want to know, is he a fortune teller? Right? Can he see the future in a way that most normal human beings cannot? Legitimate question, I think. 1 second. We have to take a quick momentary break.
Yeah. Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
Sorry about that, a little issue with the animals. But I want to know. So, let's talk about it. Let's run that back from the top. I want to know, is John Elway a fortune teller? Does he have a crystal ball? Can he see the future in ways that other human beings simply cannot? Now, John Elway is a lot of things, and he's been very successful at a lot of things. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks ever, the greatest quarterback in Broncos franchise history, number 1 overall draft pick, drafted by so good as an athlete, drafted as a professional baseball player and a football player. But now I ask John, can you also see the future? Because while this has been a topic on Broncos Twitter for the last several years of, oh my gosh, I can't believe Elway didn't draft Allen. What are we talking about? At what point was Josh Allen this super prized prospect? Like, at what point did people look at Josh Allen and say, that guy's going to be the future, one of the 3-4 best quarterbacks in the NFL? That guy's going to be an MVP level player. At what point in Josh Allen's career and maturing process was this ever established, or did this ever become a thing? I'm asking. Maybe I'm wrong. But if you go back and look at Josh Allen, and you look at how he played in college, the way he was viewed as a prospect, is it was this super raw, super, yeah, the potential is there, but he played so bad in college. I mean, look at his games against Oregon, that he had a game where he went and completed 9 passes. As a collegiate athlete, he was still just as tall, he was still just as fast, he could still throw the ball just as far as he wanted, and just as far as he can now. And maybe even a slight bit better of a runner because just less wear and tear. He's on year 7 in the league. You know, he's had obviously multiple hits, so maybe even slightly better runner. And while yes, being a super raw prospect will get you drafted in the first round, Allen was, this idea that, oh, he was clearly the right pick, especially for the Broncos, better than Bradley Chubb, who Bradley Chubb had the reputation coming out. He was kind of the can't miss guy. Not in the sense of he was going to come in and be a defensive player of the year or best player in the league or face of your franchise, but he was can't miss in the context of there's always the one guy in the draft who you're like, okay, whatever happens, he might not be a Hall of Famer or an All-Pro, but there's no way this guy's going to be bad. And that was Bradley Chubb. And Bradley Chubb has proven that. He's had some injuries, but he has proven when he's on the field. Miami just gave him a $100 million contract. Denver didn't want to because they weren't in a position, both team success. But Bradley Chubb was a good player, was a Pro Bowl player. And when he's healthy, he can produce and he can do a lot for a team. Allen was one of the most raw prospects anyone has ever seen. Even the biggest Josh Allen supporters of today were not Josh Allen supporters of when he came out in the draft. Think about it. Him and Lamar, just being honest here, they were thought to have been very raw prospects. And Lamar at least had the collegiate success to go with the raw prospect status. Josh Allen doesn't even have that. Josh Allen was not he was not a big-time program. He wasn't in a big-time conference. He was a tall, really athletic kid out of Wyoming. Does that justify, oh, for sure, he's got to be the pick for the Broncos. He's got to be. Well, if everybody knew what he was going to be, like, this is where the revisionist history part comes in and where it's so frustrating, is if it's so easy to tell Josh Allen was going to be this guy, then we have to go throughout all of NFL history and we have to take it's so obviously this guy when Brady was a 6th-round pick. Mahomes went 10th overall. Rodgers went pick 24. Like, if it's so easy to figure these guys out, sometimes you have an Elway, a Manning, an Andrew Luck, where it's like, okay, they're going to be the first pick in the draft. We get it. They're great. They're going to come in the lead. They're going to be great. Boom, boom, boom. But for 99.9% of other players, we don't really know, and it's kind of a crapshoot. So to go to revise history and say, oh, that's clearly John Elway's biggest mistake is a load of crap. Mind you, if it was it's not even really his biggest mistake of stuff that was clearly obvious. If John Elway wants to have any revisionist history takes about what he should have done or what he shouldn't have done as an NFL general manager, go look at Kyle Shanahan. You know, the son of the guy who's your most successful head coach in franchise history, the guy who basically said, yeah, that's the team I want to go play for. Oh, and by the way, now you wouldn't have known this in hindsight, but he was going to end up being very fond of another player. His name's Christian McCaffrey. Maybe you've heard of him. And he's going to be so fond of him, when he gets his first chance, he's going to go get him. Oh, by the way, his dad also played for your franchise. His dad also won a Super Bowl with you. So if John Elway wants to have this revisionist history take of, man, Allen's the one that got away. No, he's not. No one knew what Josh Allen was going to become. Kyle Shanahan at least had coaching experience. We knew Kyle Shanahan had proven himself. Now, did we know he was going to be one of the 2 or 3 best head coaches in the NFL? Technically, no. But he had a proven resume and was proven as a coordinator that he could get the job done. And he was far more along his journey than Josh Allen was alongside his. Again, you can play revisionist history with everybody. Brady was a 6th-round pick. Mahomes went 10th overall. Like, we could do that all day. But the reality is, Elway's biggest mistake, and Elway as a GM, I think, is one of the more convoluted stories you can get into. Some people love him, some people hate him. The reality is, he got Peyton Manning, and that was a part of him being with the franchise. Peyton wanted to be with Elway towards the end of his career, coming off neck surgeries, and he won a Super Bowl. Yes. Is there several losing seasons post the Super Bowl that John is on the hook for? 1,000%. Is John the guy that said, yo, Paxton Lynch was the guy? Because in this interview, again, when he's talking about Allen, he's like, Allen's my guy. Tall, big arm. Well, so was Paxton Lynch. And how did that work out? Again, you can do revisionist history all day. We all could with our own life. You know who really loves revisionist history? Gamblers. Man, if I just hit on this card, or if I just stayed on here, I would have won this. They're always playing the last hand. And that's what this conversation, when John went on for the podcast, that's what it sounded like. Hey, I'm playing the last hand. I'm not actually looking towards the future. I'm not actually being innovative. I'm not actually putting in the work, figuring it out, doing the research to move forward. I'm going to stress over, oh, you know what could have been? Gamblers do that. People do that with their ex-partners. Man, if I had just, done this, done that, fine. Use it as information, but be very clear. We lived through it. Nobody was calling Josh Allen this breakthrough prospect coming out of Wyoming. Most people were calling him a project. Not sure if he's going to make it. He's going to need a lot of help. And again, Denver's roster, Buffalo did it, where Buffalo got him. He struggled as a rookie, but they were like, hey, there's enough there. And they ended up constructing their roster, getting him a receiver, getting him the head coach that he needed, getting him an offensive coordinator, Brian Dable. They ended up taking the correct steps, what turned out to be the correct steps, and they got Josh to this point he's at now. But there's no guarantee Denver would have been there. But at least if you would went after the realistic option in real time, which was Kyle Shanahan, and see would he have won his first or second year? Probably not, but he didn't win his first 2 years with the Niners. He didn't win until he had a couple years, a couple drafts, got to go start getting his quarterback, who he won with Garoppolo, and he's winning with Purdy, and he's built together a team with John Lynch. That is the decision John Elway should regret. He shouldn't regret not taking Josh Allen, and that's nothing against Josh Allen. Josh Allen is, with hindsight, Josh, because of the position of quarterback, yes, he is more valuable to the Bills, and he is more valuable on any given Sunday than even maybe one of the two best head coaches in the sport. And that's because he has the ball in his hands, he can run, he can throw. Like, we all understand that. But it is total revisionist history to sit there and say, oh yeah, Elway should have drafted Allen. And I've seen that take on Twitter. And I was just, I just thought, I was hoping, I always say, executives and GMs and these guys in the NFL or professional sports, they generally know more than us, the common fan, and that's why they're paid six figures. Because trust me, NFL owners don't just like handing out and paying six-figure salaries. They don't. That's not what they want to do. So for anybody to have earned that role and to have kept that role, they usually know something. And so I gave Elway the benefit of the doubt that, he would never fall to this story that Bronco fan user 6937 on Twitter's complaining about 5 years after the fact. But here we are. Maybe that was Elway's burner. Bronco user 63924 or whatever number I just said. Let's go to another all-time great who this isn't so much what he's saying, but this is what other people are talking about him. Bill Bellicheck is the greatest football coach in the history of the sport. I understand Andy Reid is making a case right now because he's building a resume because of Mahomes and him and their dominance that is going to rival what Bill did. And that's valid, and that's its own conversation, and I'm not going to take anything away from Coach Reid. Coaches come usually in one of two types. There's a handful of exceptions, and there's a handful of one-off guys, but most coaches are either notorious player coaches, like they pretty much go, hey, I'm just going to make sure this works for the guys I got in the locker room. And the other handful of great head coaches are just hard asses. Bill Bellicheck, Greg Popovich, and I caught the end of Bob Knight's career. 3 notorious hard asses, 3 notorious, I don't want to confuse the word, but like say sports dictator kind of head coach, where it was my rules all the time. I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm going to let you know I'm the boss, and I'm going to do it with this no nonsense, no bullshit mentality. Right? That's who they were. And that's fine. And that's just the reality of their situation is that's who they are. And that is totally fine because they had the success with Bob Knight. I understand totally fine. I'm not here to debate that. When it comes to their success, it was so unmatched. It was so unparalleled compared to the field that they were able to get away with it. You can't be, and even before you get into the player empowerment era of the NBA, you can't be the hard ass without the results. Heat culture doesn't work unless they're making deep playoff runs going to the finals. You go to the finals, Jimmy doesn't say anything. He loves to be in Miami. You get knocked out in the first round, Jimmy's hurt. Jimmy doesn't want to be there. It's hard. No one really likes, even the guy, maybe the guy who's yelling does it, but no one really wants to get yelled at. No one wants to feel like as an adult, they are put in almost this child equivalent position where someone is just screaming at them and someone is just going off all the time. And so Gerard Mayo was talking to a reporter and he said, hey, Bill hasn't really reached out to me. And the internet lost their fucking mind. And they were like, how could Bill not do that? Oh my gosh, can you believe it? Bill hasn't reached out to Gerard Mayo. That was one of his favorite players. How could you not reach out to one of your favorite players, the guy who just took your job? What is being Bill Belichick's favorite player? Like, what is that worth, if we're being honest? What is being Greg Popovich's favorite player worth? Well, it got Tim Duncan a coaching job that he loved so much, the same guy that he played for 20 years. He was on the bench for a year and said, I'm good. Bill, if you acknowledged in the moment, then this isn't for you. If you acknowledge that Bill was always an asshole, if you acknowledge that Bill was always ran a very tight ship, the reason why the Patriots were the Patriots is because Bill was no nonsense, no bullshit, all this stuff. And that's why they were always felt like this very professional, buttoned up team. They didn't make the same mistakes everybody else did. And almost every other team in the league throughout the Patriots run was considered, we'd always hear the terms loose, not as buttoned up, not as tight. And it was, look at what the Patriots are doing. Look at how they perform business. And it was revered for 20 plus years. And the man has 6 Super Bowls out of it. And now, because they don't win as much, we're going to revise and just act like it's a shock that Bill might be a little rough around the edges or a little bit of an asshole or, not the player's coach. Am I shocked that Bill didn't reach out to his former player? No. I think it'd be weird to expect Bill to do that when that was never Bill's resume. And again, you could just dislike somebody who's like that. That's fine. That's a different argument. That's a different conversation. But to act like, oh, this has changed or this is different, Bill has always been this person. And maybe he'll go down with the ship. Maybe he will just keep coaching or never get a chance again. He kept coaching those last couple years in New England, and it kept going downhill. He went down with that ship. And he might not get another job because maybe that's why he didn't get the Falcons job, because Arthur Blank said, nah, I got too many young guys on the team. I don't need the super hard ass. It's not going to work with these guys. It's younger. It's a new generation. Bill, that's not going to work. Sorry. And while Bill will get other offers this following offseason, anybody who tries to act like they don't know what they're signing up for, you're either just an idiot, misinformed, or you're trying to change what we saw for over 20 years. Like, just think about it. This is who Bill Bellicheck has always been. This is who Bill Bellicheck will always be. I'm not shocked by it. I'm not surprised by it. I think I'm more surprised by the fact so many other people were taken back by it. Yeah, he's not going to be the guy to reach out to players. He's not going to be the guy to do, him and Tom were together for 20 years, and all we heard about, and while Tom is super respectful and super appreciative because he knew Bill brought this interesting perspective and he was such a defensive genius and he knows his career would be different without him. When he finally got away from Bill, did you see the way Tom changed? Did you see the way Tom was able to go, take a deep breath? And that's his all-time favorite player. And Gerard Mayo's supposed to get a text or something or a call because we're going to act like Bill Belichick's not the guy he told us he was through his actions for 20 plus years. I lived through it. Tony always tells me this when you start talking stuff with him and he's like, man, people are just talking. I lived through this. I saw this. You can't change what I lived or I saw. And that's 1,000% true. We lived through it. Don't revise the history that we lived through. Oh man, a lot to talk about today. We have the Elway one really just took me off because John, you're supposed to be better than that, man. You're one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. You're an NFL legend. You're supposed to be better than Twitter user 6397. My opinion. With that being said, a lot to talk about today. We still have the MVP favorite. I know sounds correct because the player's great. But Vegas, can we talk? Like, please, Vegas, can we talk? And then we're breaking down the AFC West. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily.
Yeah. Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
Thank you, David Griffin. So the Pelicans acquired DeJounte Murray from the Hawks. While I am sad to see Larry Nance go, he was an emotional leader for the second unit. The reality is a potential starting lineup with Murray, Herb Jones, B.I., hopefully resigns, Zion, probably throw the rookie in there to start because you need a big, and it's another guy who's not going to demand a lot of shots, similar to Herb Jones. Then off the bench, potentially, if he's willing to accept it, C.J. McCollum, Trey Murphy, Jordan Hawkins, Jose Alvarado. Yeah, you're not going to necessarily be big, and so you're going to need one more, maybe just another 7-footer on the roster as far as some bulk and some size. Don't just get out rebounded every game. But length, skill, athleticism, shooting, Pelicans pull this off, and if Willie Green is really that guy as a head coach, that's a top 4 seed, potentially top 2 seed in the Western Conference. Thank you, David Griffin. So the And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for listening. So, Mahomes take all the words one used to describe someone, right? He is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's the best player in the NFL. He is one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen from a pure raw talent perspective. And because he's already accomplished so much so quick, he's already edged his name in the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game conversation. And because he's almost running unparalleled to another all-time great, and I know that sounds weird, but the majority throughout sports history, right? Magic and Bird played at the same time. Those are 2 all-time greats that if they were alone in their own era, it would be undisputed whose era it was. But because they ran side by side, we give them both credit. You can almost minimize and appreciate the dual greatness, right? This is what gave Mike an exception. Mike ran unparalleled. yes, Hakeem won 2 titles in the 90s, and Hakeem, by most standards, is one of the 10 to 15 greatest players ever. But Mike being in that top 1, top 2 conversation ever for players, he was a level even above Hakeem. So he ran unimpeded and unparalleled to another high-end superstar. In the NFL, Brady, Manning, 2 guys. Obviously, Brady's the GOAT, but Manning and Brady also had not only just Manning, but he had Rodgers during his prime, Breeze. He had these other guys who were in the conversation as all-time greats. And so he didn't really separate himself until that very end when he won those couple of Super Bowls at the end of his career. And so Mahomes, because of that, while yes, we acknowledge Burrow, Lamar, Allen, these are the other great quarterbacks in the league, they're not on Mahomes' level. They are, Mike had Barkley, Hakeem, other all-time greats, for their own respective position all-time greats, David Robinson, but he was clearly still above everybody. So he changed the way you could almost even examine basketball. He was so much better than his peers. And Mahomes has done that in the NFL. He's so much better than his peers. He's so much more accomplished than his peers. Your conversations all start with, who's the second best quarterback in the NFL? Who's the second best player in the league? Because he's already established number 1 and by a mile. So because of that, because he has created this leap, he's changing all the conversation points. And it's you sound stupid almost. Not even almost. You just sound stupid if you come on TV or YouTube or whatever social media platform, podcast, and you try to say, you know what? Mahomes really isn't the guy. Actually, let me tell you who the guy is. And we've been force-fed these subjects for about the last year to 18 months, especially because the Chiefs did have a struggle. And they all turned out to be irrelevant, either not entertaining, stupid, or just pointless. Even for some of these people that are asked to go on TV because they're paid by a big-time network to have these conversations, you almost look in their face and you're like, yeah, you guys don't really believe this. I understand you have to say this, you're paid, et cetera, you got to get TV time, but you guys don't really even believe this. And so, because of all that, if I come on here and say, who's the betting favorite for NFL MVP? And Vegas has Mahomes, and most people would say Mahomes. But now I'm going to take the challenge. Can I be the guy who says the stupid thing and not make it sound stupid? Serious question. Can I be the guy who sits there and goes, you know what? We all know Mahomes is great. We all know Mahomes is this, that, and the third. But what if, can I be the guy who says he's not actually, nor should he be, the guy who is the MVP frontrunner? Can I do that? I'll take my bias out really quick. Obviously, don't really like the Chiefs. Fair? So let's take the bias out first. That's obvious. Then let's go down the list. And this is where and it's nothing against Mahomes, but I said, and I stand on this, and this isn't going to impact, I'm going to say, when I talk about them from a standings perspective later in the show as we break down the AFC West, I will totally give it up to them. It's not hard to see. They're going to be the number 1 team in the AFC West. Not even going to argue on that, right? But MVP is different, because MVP is, you could just argue the AFC West isn't that good, and that's why Mahomes is going to win it. And I've already said, and I said this last week, I think this could be the worst version of the Chiefs we see. Now, when you've won 3 out of 4 Super Bowls, when you've been to 4 out of 5, it's hard to say, like, okay, is this, what is your worst version of you? But here's what I just really want to attack. And this is the idea that he's got more weapons than he's had the last couple of years since post-Tyreek. Obviously, when he came in the league, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, they had weapons everywhere. So, the excitement and the optimism for this year's Kansas City Chiefs offensively is Rashee Rice, who we're not sure how many games he's actually going to play because he potentially could be suspended by the league. Hollywood Brown, who I like Hollywood, but I think we've all turned Hollywood into this concept more than an actual player. We like the concept of Hollywood Brown. that he's a really fast guy. Him and Lamar were friends. He had some big plays. We remember that opening game against Miami from a few years ago where he looked like him and Lamar were going to have that kind of a connection. Well, it turned out so good. Baltimore traded him to Arizona, and Arizona only kept him for a year, and now he's in Kansas City. And obviously Mahomes is better than Kyler, and Mahomes is better than Lamar. So theoretically, he's going to be boosted. And we're going to attack that in a second. Then we have the rookie Xavier Worthy. He's a rookie. I'm not sure if I'm really going much there. And then we have Sky Moore, who it looks like he can barely make it in practice. I saw a tweet yesterday that said Sky Moore threw an interception on a return, not a joke. Go see it for yourself. And then Kadarius Toney, for the audio listeners, clapped, dropped the ball. Kadarius Toney. Obviously, Travis Kelce, a tight end, cool, and also a rookie left tackle, and a right tackle who was the most penalized player in the league last year, Juwan Taylor. And no, it wasn't just because they were focusing on him or trying to be mean to the Chiefs. He was just blatantly false starting, holding, etc., etc. When you're the most penalized player, it's one thing if you get a handful of penalties and they just feel kind of bad timed, etc. When you're the most penalized guy in the league, you can't really say, oh, they're just targeting me. Like Rasheed Wallace wasn't allowed to say, oh, they're just targeting me. No, you're yelling and shouting at everyone and flailing your arms. At some point, it's you. So Patrick Mahomes has to basically play, let me raise everyone up, which, by the way, and I think this is a misconception, we know a receiver is better when he plays with a great quarterback, but it's usually really like one receiver a year for that 1 year. Like one guy has the season where he's like a breakout because he's playing with a great quarterback, and that's about it. We knew in Indianapolis when Peyton Manning had Harrison, Wayne, Dallas Clark, there was always a third guy, but he always kind of was random. Like Harrison was going to get his, Wayne got his, Dallas Clark got his, and then the fourth guy was just like, okay, it's you this year, okay, it's you that year, and then they never do anything else. Brady the same way. Brady had guys who he was able to elevate. And it was also consistently Moss, Welker, Jabbar Gaffney had a year in there. Then you had Gronkowski and Hernandez, and somebody else got a year in there. Even at the end with Tampa, I can't remember his name now, but he had the big NFC Championship game. But it was pretty much Gronkowski, Brown, Mike Evans. I'm forgetting the other Tampa receiver. Apologize. But there's always that other guy, but it's usually just one guy, and it's for 1 year. So we're asking Mahomes, and his contemporaries are guys like Manning, guys like Brady. Like those are his actual contemporaries if you want to go on a talent and how great they are basis. So we're going to ask him to do that with Rashee Rice, who was promising as a rookie, bunch of issues off the field. Let's see what he is. Hollywood Brown, who hasn't worked consistently anywhere. Kadarius Toney, who drops everything. Sky Moore, who seems to be struggling just in practice. Justin Watson, again, another young guy. And the rookie. What do you want him to go, rebuild the stadium too next year? Like, at what point is enough enough? At what point is he can't actually elevate 5-6 guys all at once? That's never happened in the history of the NFL. That's the reality. Never as a quarterback elevated 4 or 5 guys to this degree. And I'm not even including the fact of he does have to elevate and adjust to an older Travis Kelce. Because I think where they got in trouble last year, I think there was some great self-acknowledgement at the end of the season that, hey, we're no longer the duo that we once were. Hey, we're no longer the as explosive. I've lost a step. I don't get open quite as quick. I need 4 seconds to get open instead of 3. And I think they acknowledged and they fixed that. But Kelce's not getting younger. He's not going to get a step back. He's coming off his worst season in the Mahomes era. So he basically has to elevate Kelce. He has to elevate these 4 or 5 wide receivers. And that's the guy we think is going to be MVP. Versus I would rather take Jordan Love, who, even though is obviously not the talent that Mahomes is, at least he has other viable receivers who are also young like him. He's had chemistry with, he's had rapport with, guys who look like they're ready to break out. I'd rather have Jordan Love on my MVP ballot than Mahomes. And that's not to say, like, obviously Mahomes is the better player. That's not a discussion. We've had to change the way we discuss Mahomes because he's lapped the field. We all understand that. But he's going to elevate 5 or 6 guys, including young guys, troubled guys, his old tight end. We're just going to ask him to do all of that all at once. Now, if he does, fine. You're the MVP. You did it. But we have no proof that that has ever happened or ever worked in the history of the NFL. Oh, yeah, by the way, they're trying to win their 3rd Super Bowl in a row. No pressure. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? All right, we are talking the AFC West today, so we have to start. Remember, the placement in which we talk about them is in the way that I believe they will finish. We have 4 categories. We have studs, which means we are tearing this all down to the studs. We are starting over from scratch. We have building, which means you see the few pieces, you see the future. We have living, that is people, that is teams that are good, they're ready to go. And then we have celebrating, which are teams which are true contenders. They are ready to celebrate, ready to win a title. And so, of course, we got to start with maybe the weirdest studs in the NFL, the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders aren't exactly tear it all down to the studs and keep going because they have Devontae Adams, right? Like you would just assume, okay, Devontae Adams is on your team. You have an interim head coach who's now your real head coach, which you usually only get because you had momentum and you did some winning at the end of the season. You did win some games. You had the big win. You won against Denver. You had that big win against the Chargers on Thursday night. We scored almost 60 points, or I think you did score over 60 points. So it's a weird situation to say, and you just spent money, seven-figure money on a quarterback. So it's weird to call them, they're tearing it down to the studs and saying they got nothing there. Because they clearly do. But where I think the Raiders are going to struggle the most is that I think they started this and just didn't quite stop until they were really ready to commit. I think the Raiders were ready to pull everything out, which is why they got rid of McDaniels, which is why they were ready to let Josh Jacobs go. But if you do that, you commit. This is where a lot of teams get in trouble. They don't want to commit to doing the full rebuild. So we're going to keep Devontae Adams. We're going to keep Max Crosby. We're going to pay Gardner Minshew, which is weird. We're going to have Aiden O'Connell there. Like, there's a lot of weird that is going on with the Las Vegas Raiders right now. Like, a lot of weird. So, should they be... I think they will be competitive. I think they'll be that weird team that it's like, even if they don't have a lot of wins come the end of the season, they will be competitive in almost every game, especially divisional games. I think they have a chance to, if they only win 5 games this year, I think they could get 3 of those in division. 1 against Chiefs, 1 against the Broncos, 1 against the Chargers, and maybe even 2 against the Broncos or Chargers, right? They swept Denver last year, so maybe they get 2 against Denver again. Who knows? I don't think so, but who knows? So, my only question to Raiders fans is, what do you guys want? Because I think this is one of the weirder teams. Them and the Falcons, I know, and the Falcons are really obvious to find out why they're weird. Pay Kirk Cousins all this money, and then we're going to draft Michael Penix. It's like, it's a weird, but that one's like outwardly easy to see, easy to tell. Oh yeah, this is weird. Maybe these guys don't know what they're doing. Versus the Raiders, well, what are we doing, guys? Are we trying to compete? Are we, because what it feels like is the Raiders feel like they are intentionally going to be average. They're going to be around, like if the Raiders got their way, I think the high end is they get 7-8 wins, They're not quite a playoff team, but they're that last team that's always in the hunt on those NBC graphics or CNN graphics you see. NBC graphics, I'm sorry. Like, but you don't want to be the middling team, especially as a fan. You don't want to be the team. You don't want to be the Chicago Bulls of the NFL. So, if you're going to keep Antonio Pierce, if you're going to keep Max Crosby, if you're going to keep Devontae Adams, if you're going to pay money to a quarterback, you're probably going to be too good to be bad this season to get a top 3, top 4 pick, which you would need to get a Shedeur Sanders, a Quinn Ewers, guys like that. But you're not going to be good enough to be a playoff team. You're not going to be good enough to be competing. You're obviously not a contender. So what are the Raiders? I think them and the Falcons are the two biggest what are we doing here situations. And at least the Falcons, for a 1-year base model, I could make a better argument for them that Kirk this year is obviously better than Penix. They have Kyle Pitts, even though they don't like to use them. They have Bijan Robinson, even though they don't like to use them. They have receivers, like they have Drake London. They have skill position guys. So for a year, it makes sense. The Raiders don't make sense this year or long term. So what are we doing, Las Vegas? Are we just happy we're no longer the poorest owner in the sport? Is that what the expectations are? Is that what the new standard of Raider football is? Asking for a friend. I'm not. I don't give a fuck about the Raiders. When we come back, we're going to break down the next two teams. Shockingly enough, I already said it. Yeah, it's not going to be the Chiefs. We're going to talk about the Broncos and the Chargers. In what order? We shall see. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily.
Yeah. It's facts. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the 4 with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the 4 with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
At number 9, Caleb Williams. Funny enough, he has one of Justin Herbert's old weapons in Keenan Allen. If you look at what the Bears did, and I don't like hyperbole statements, but this is one that works, which is Caleb Williams probably has the best situation for a number 1 overall pick in NFL history. At number 4, this is the one we're probably all a little too high on, but it's okay. I am drinking the Kool-Aid, and that is C.J. Stroud with the Houston Texans. DeMeco Ryans, C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, how we always say, or we've been saying since this era of rookie quarterbacks, when guys play right away, you pretty much know right off the bat. Which leaves us with number 1, and I know it's the best situation because most people don't even think the quarterback's all that good or And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. The Chargers are up next, and I think this is the same way I said the Raiders were the most confusing team along with Atlanta in the NFL. And there's obviously a handful of teams, Chiefs, Niners, that are clearly contenders, clearly ready to celebrate. I think the Chargers are one of the most clear examples of this is a house. They are building without a question. And now, if you're the Chargers, you have done it in a very conventional way, and it makes sense, I think, both to football people and even fans that can just observe it from the distance. You clearly have your coach quarterback. Jim Harbaugh, coming off a national championship in Michigan, has had a lot of success in the NFL. I don't think there's really a lot of people that would doubt that move or critique that move or say, hey, that wasn't the right decision. And then you have Justin Herbert, who by all accounts has the talent. He's obviously paid like one, but he has the talent of a top 5 quarterback. And so you have two huge foundational pieces. You got your quarterback, you got your head coach. And now it's time to figure out, okay, what does the rest of this look like? And Jim will find out. I think there is the Chargers as a part of building. Sometimes you build and you strike gold. You figure out, ooh, we can actually add this. We can do that. And they might strike gold and win 10, 11 games because Jim is just that quick and they figure out, you know what? We actually already have the right pieces. I don't have to figure out if they're the right pieces. We've already got them. Or you have the other end, which is the end I do think they will end up on, which is they're going to find out who the right pieces are. They have Derwin James. They have Bosa. They've got Herbert. They've got who I think they're probably figuring out in training camp. If you believe, seen the videos come out, Quentin Johnston's probably not one of their guys. They've got a left tackle in Slater. So they're going, and Jim is going to find out within 8 to 10 weeks, regardless of what the record is, you'll know who's going to be on this roster in 3 to 4 years, which for them could potentially be just their quarterback and left tackle. That's a possibility. Derwin James, who despite his Madden rating, which I just want to know what he has on people at EA, of being still a top 5 safety, he has obviously lost a step. He is no longer the player that was potentially a top 5 safety at one point. You have, again, Slater, who looks like a mountain at left tackle and a perennial all-pro to protect your quarterback for years to come. Bosa, we'll see if will he keep the status of an elite pass rusher like his brother? His brother's obviously lapped him, but will he be able to stay in that where the Chargers feel like, oh, we have to keep this guy. This is a foundational piece. Coaches we talked about when we talked about Bellicheck, they're usually hard asses or they are usually hard asses. But they are also, most of them, even the hard asses, are great teachers. And Jim is going to teach the guys that are willing to be taught, the guys that are willing to accept, hey, this is what I have to do. This is how I need to improve. Jim will get the most out of those guys. And he will find out, like I said, he's not going to necessarily find out who's going to win this year unless, maybe they do strike gold and, Bosa does have a bounce back year and Herbert and the receivers get on the same page. But he's going to find out who's going to be on this roster. Just like, and this is what all the great coaches do. Talked about Kyle Shanahan early in the show. Kyle Shanahan figured out, he got to San Francisco. He's like, okay, this is what I have. This is what I'm working with. Okay. Couple drafts later, couple free agencies later, he has his team. He's winning NFC Championship games, Super Bowls. Niners look like maybe the best roster in the sport. This is what great head coaches do. They are teachers, they're builders, they're architects. Jim Harbaugh will find out, is this the team that I have that can take me to where I want to go? No, then James won't be on this team, Derwin, in a few years. Bosa won't be on this team in a few years. Quentin Johnston won't be on this team. They said they potentially could just be Herbert. They could potentially be a team that is just quarterback, left tackle, head coach. That's very viable. And I don't think Charger fans, when they're going to take this as hate, you're going to take this as criticizing, that might not be a bad place to be. The reality is, if that's your place in the ecosystem, at least you know that, and at least you believe that you have the right guy who figured that out and said, okay, look, this is what we need. This is who's going to make it work. This is how we move forward. That's a good thing if you're a Chargers fan. Does that good or great for this year in particular? No, but fans, we have to start seeing beyond just this year. I know that's hard. I know we all want to, we're all worried about right now, don't care about the future, but the future matters to an owner that's been historically cheap, a city that they are trying to break into in LA when you're competing with the Dodgers, you're competing with the Rams, you're competing with the Lakers, the Clippers. Like, you are in a city that is constantly competing for attention, not just for sports, but you are competing with Disneyland, you are competing with the beach, you are competing with the weather, people just going outside. So if you want someone to come to a TV and say, watch the Los Angeles Chargers, you need to make damn sure you have the guy who's going to put it into motion and who's going to sit there and form like, this is the team that's worth coming to watch. Don't go to the beach. Don't watch basketball. Don't go watch the other football team here. Come watch us. We will show you why we're there. And they believe they have the guy. And I'll be honest with you, this is probably the scariest as currently presented. And no one's going to believe this statement, and that's fine. The AFC West, with the exception of Oakland, and I like Antonio Pierce, I just don't think he's the quality that these other three guys are. This is maybe the most dangerous this division has been in years, in decades. If I want to say this correctly, if you remember a few years ago, Denver went in crazy on free agency, got Russ, signed other players. The Chargers went out and signed a bunch of guys. The Raiders, Devontae Adams, Chandler Jones. It was a crazy free-for-all for free agents in the AFC West. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, the AFC West is loading up. Look how good they're getting. Look at all these players that are going there. It's going to be... The reality is that didn't work because the head coaches were Josh McDaniels, no longer there, ran out by his second NFL organization. Nathaniel Hackett, do I have to say anything? And Brandon Staley. Now, the head coaches in the AFC West are Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and a very impressive first season, even on an interim basis, Antonio Pierce. This is the best four head coach tandem in the NFL. And the only division that I personally think is close is the AFC North. That's it. And Tomlin, obviously, you got to respect. Zach Taylor, who got the respect after going to a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh, Jim's brother, obviously is there. And Kevin Stefanski as a Coach of the Year award. But the coaching in this division is what's actually going to make the difference, despite this very same division going so crazy in free agency. So if you're the Chargers, you are clearly building, but you might strike gold while you're building. And, you get that season out of Bosa where he gets 13 to 14 sacks. It looks like a real dominant pass rusher again. Derwin James starts playing like an all-pro safety, not just the one EA tries to fake. Quentin Johnson and the receiving corps bounce back despite losing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So the Chargers, I think, is clearly a build, but I believe wholeheartedly they have the right guy to build, and this is absolutely a team to watch for, not so much this year, but next year. Then we got the very near and dear to my heart. Oh, man. So, and I know probably my most wrong prediction year after year after year is the outcome of, or my predictions of, the Denver Broncos. I've probably been wrong on that more than anything else maybe in my life. But everything I just said about the Chargers, I firmly believe for the Broncos, with two big exceptions. A, the Broncos have the richest owner in the sport who is willing to spend money. Not just richest ownership group, but like one dude. Look at the NFL's richest owners list. The Walton has $70 billion. Next closest, I think, is like at 17, 20 billion. You could throw me a couple dollars. So they have a guy who's wealthy enough to do it and is willing to actually spend the money. And they're in year 2 of building. Now, it didn't feel like a building year last year because Russ was getting paid all this money, and Sean Payton was viewed more as a, can I fix Russ? really smart guys are willing to admit they're wrong really quickly. Sean Payton, I believe, to be a really smart guy, and he admitted, hey, he watched training camp, preseason, first couple games of the regular season. He was like, look, man, this ain't going to work. We need to start moving this along. And while he showed he still had credibility as an offensive mind, Denver did go on a 5-game win streak. I know the world likes to forget that because Miami put 70 on them. But stay focused. Denver went on a 5-game win streak. Peyton was able to show to ownership and up top saying, hey, look, I can still do this. I know who the right pieces are. Cortland Sutton's one of the right pieces. Jerry Jeudy's not. So Judy's gone. Sutton gets a restructure and potentially is going to get a contract extension. Russ ain't the right piece. Cool. Russ is out of there. We're going to draft Bo Nix. Offensive line, I already went and brought in 2 guys. I want to do it again. Quinn Miners, you're the right guy. After already paying McGlinchey and Ben Powers, we're going to pay you too. Justin Simmons is probably an unfortunate, just transitional cut. He's obviously still a great player, but Sean has seen enough from Caden Stearns to go, okay, I get Stearns, I get Surtain. We're gonna make this work, and I've got a bunch of young pass rushers, Browning, etc. Like, he already went in there last year. He saw the studs and said, hey, we're going to start tearing some of this down. It wasn't perceived as that because Russ was making a lot of money. Russ is a Hall of Famer. Russ has a reputation. And both him and Sean being Super Bowl winners, not together, but apart, both having championships, they were both qualified and discussed in a different light because they had resumes deserving of such. But Sean went in there and said, look, this ain't going to work long term. Sorry. I know I thought there was a chance I could fix Russ. There was things I liked about Russ, but long-term this ain't going to work. So he got his guy. He doubled down on the O-line, which is what he wanted, because if you go look at some of Drew Brees' best teams, despite Brees throwing for a bunch of yards, there's more notable running backs out of New Orleans than there are receivers. Drew Brees' most notable receivers, Marcus Colston, tight ends, Jimmy Graham, Shockey for a few years. But if you go down running backs, Deuce McAllister, Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles, Alvin Kamara. Like, he had a lot of running backs throughout his tenure, and the Saints always had good offensive linemen. Speaking of Madden, Jari Evans was always a 98 overall my whole life. Never really heard much about it. Never heard anyone really talk about Jari Evans, but he was always a 98. Chris Streif, always high 90s. They always had good offensive lines. They always had running games. He knew that even though he had one of the most prolific passers ever, he knew he needed a running game and he needed a foundation. And what does Denver have the potential to be this year, even if it's a rookie at quarterback? We'll go look at maybe the best clip to come out of practice out of any NFL team. Audric Estime just bulldozing a guy. Him, Javonte Williams, a power running game. You've got Sutton. You've got Mims year 2 in the system. You have Greg Dulcich, if he's healthy, year 2 in the system. This has the potential, a defense that, if you take out the 70-point game, a defense that honestly was like in that 10 to 15 range. It was not nearly as bad as people claimed it out to be. You still have Pat Surtain, the best cornerback in football. Like, he already has his pieces, and this is year 2 of his build. So, yes, I own 1,000% Denver to compete for a playoff spot because this is what it should look like. And to my Charger fans, this is the same position I have you guys in next year. Now, it might be tougher because potentially by next year, the Broncos are proven they're good. The Chiefs are obviously the Chiefs. But right now, Denver's only really competing, in my opinion, in division with the Chiefs. And the Chiefs are just clearly better, so it doesn't matter too much. The Chiefs are clearly going to win the division. The Chiefs' current dynasty, all that stuff, it's all great. We know that. But Sean Payton came in and identified, this is what works. This is what doesn't. I'm going to double down on paying my offensive line because I want to have a good offensive line because it's one of the more frustrating things to deal with. I've got a receiver that I like. I've got young receivers that I like. I've got a top flight end corner. I've got a young safety that I want to get the chance in. Like I said, I wish Justin Simmons is one of my all-time favorite Broncos. I wish he could be a part of this because he endured so much of the losing of the last 7 years. But the reality is Sean Payton, who I think's a smart guy, he's been doing it for a long time, even with him taking the break from football for a year. You have the richest owner in the sport. You're identifying the mistakes. You're identifying the strengths. Denver 1,000% will look like an entirely different football team. Power running, couple good receivers, a rookie quarterback who I'm not going to the season hoping fucking Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham is the quarterback. But Bo Nix, these running backs, these receivers, these pieces on defense, this roster, PFF rating them the worst roster in the sport is just a joke. That's just a lot of the criticism that was put behind why would you draft Bo Nix at 12. But how did we start this show? The revisionist history of Josh Allen, how he was taken. I'm not saying Nix will be Allen, but remember, nobody knows what the fuck they're doing when it comes to drafting quarterbacks. So that's why I've got the Broncos. We're going to take one last break here, and then we are going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, I guess.
Yeah. Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going?
I'm curious to see, and this isn't really the week to be talking about this kind of thing, but like I'm curious to see. I think Naruto ended a long time ago, right?
That's valid, yeah. Almost 10 years now?
Yeah, Naruto ended a long time ago. The Boruto anime is stalled. I think there are a lot of people online that, and I think Dragon Ball follows this same thing. I think a lot of people online got a lot of clout from and made like careers off of
Those
Naruto
series,
predictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really intrigued to see what happens when people that have been doing this with One Piece for a long ass time, like Grand Line review.
Mm-hmm.
What else are you going to review?
Don't worry, he does Hunter x Hunter. That can never fail him.
Yeah, I mean he'll get a chapter every year then. Huh? So he's guaranteed one video a year.
Yeah.
But
And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Look, man, I'm not going to sit here and say a lot about the Chiefs. It's all complimentary. It's all flowery. It's all... I stand 100% on my take about I think this could be the worst version of the Chiefs. And I believe that, but I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to try to make it into a video or make it snappy to get clicks or likes or whatever. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. The reigning dynasty. They have the same aura basically as the Patriots, where it's until you prove it, they're the best team. They're the team you have to beat. All this other shit. They're clearly in the celebrating part of our towers or our tiers, whatever you want to call them. It's what can you say, man? They're the Chiefs. Like, this isn't going to be very long. Sorry, Chiefs fans, if you wanted me to sit here and say a whole bunch of things. Like, you guys already know everything there is to say about the Chiefs. And to say something contradictory, you just sound stupid. Like, they are above, as weird as it is, they are above condescending. They are above doubting. Their resume's too stacked. And they've earned that. I'll be very clear. They have earned that. And because they've already had, everything is so, I'll give you this for the next 30 seconds. They're so nuanced in the way that they've won. We've never seen this before. The Patriots got a lot of credit for, they were the first team in the salary cap era to win. But even their iterations of winning were separated by 10 years. And the variations of the team were different, but it took much longer to show the difference, right? When you had the defense, then to the two tight end set, then to the receivers. The Chiefs have already shown basically two variations in a 5-year window. They've shown you the high-flying offensive team, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Mahomes, 50 touchdowns, and they've also shown you the dominant defensive team. So it switched so quick. I'll give my Broncos a little bit of love. Denver did this in 2013, where they were the highest scoring offense in NFL history, and then in 2015, they won with an abysmal offense and a great defense. So slightly different. Denver was more free agency versus the Chiefs more drafting, but you get the point. You can't really say much about the Chiefs. They're great. They're Kansas City. Man, I'm excited to come back tomorrow. Slightly shorter episode today. But obviously, yeah, so to finish off the AFC West, Chiefs 1, Broncos 2, Chargers 3, Raiders 4. Really excited to talk tomorrow. We are going to get into the AFC North. I'm going to try to get Tony to at least give me something to add to the episode. I don't know if he's going to be able to come on live. There's something to add to the episode. Something to join in with us to talk about, obviously, his favorite team, the Ravens. With that being said, appreciate everybody, as always, at I Talk Alot 9080. Don't forget to check out the other shows here on HardFoul Network. This includes A&M.